Hi, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today it is my pleasure to introduce and bring to you Ace, who is the owner and chief of business development for Vision Acquisitions Group and a sales trainer of multiple organizations. This is a don't miss, guys. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. My name is Kale Houser. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hey, today is my special guest, and I'm super excited to bring to you Ace, who, as I had mentioned, he's the owner and chief of business development for the Vision Acquisitions Group, as well as being a jack of all trades when it comes to sales training. He works with multiple organizations, and that's really how him and I met and got into each other's world. Ace, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely, brother. How are you?
I am fantastic. And I just wanted to say, too, happy early Father's Day weekend to you as we're recording this. It's a pretty exciting milestone, and I'm sure something that you're excited about as well this weekend.
Absolutely. My two little ones have something planned. They we're going to do it last weekend. I was like, hold on, it's next weekend.
That's right. Yeah. But don't stop them too early, right? They can just be like, maybe just a double. And I forgot to mention you, it's next weekend as well. That's awesome. How old are your two kids? I forget what it was because I think we're pretty similar in age.
Yeah, my daughter, she'll be 7 in August. My son just turned 9.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so just a couple of years behind our two boys who are 12 and 14. So that's pretty exciting. It's a fun age where they're still in that discovery,
Yeah,
but
absolutely is.
they still want to be around you. All right. So as we kind of digressed a little bit there. So as I mentioned to my audience, you are the owner and chief of business development for the Vision Acquisitions Group, as well as your, at least from my understanding and my knowledge of your world, is a sales trainer. That's kind of your core foundation. Tell us a little bit about that, and then also tell us a little bit about this Vision Acquisitions Group.
Yeah, ironically, I didn't intend to do either. It just kind of evolved into that. Really, I set out to be a business coach. That was my original intention. After doing life coaching for years, wanting to get more serious into business coaching, and then really landed on being an entrepreneurship mentor. But as that started to get clearly more defined on like what it is and how the application of it is, that's where we came into mergers and acquisitions, buying and selling businesses, digital and brick and mortar. And that's what we do in Vision Acquisitions Group. And then as a business coach, I've been in sales for many years. I have managed many sales teams. I have coached many people in sales. And people started to ask me to come be a sales trainer for them. It was never my intention. I actually don't even like to call myself a sales trainer. You've been through my sales training, ironically, so you would understand this.
Right.
I teach people how to think and act like business owners, not to sell. I teach you how to stop selling and start closing deals, actually. So I didn't really intend to be a sales trainer, but once I hit the sales market, I realized that what I teach is what people really need to learn.
Yeah, which is the best kind of teaching, right? It's not just the fluff of maybe it'll work for them or maybe or not, but it's actual practical. So you and I are of the same ilk with that. Now, talk to me a little bit about with because like we mentioned, you and I entered into your world with the sales training aspect when I was going through a course with Closer Cartel for learning how to just become a better salesman and closer specifically. And you supplemented that training a lot. But you went beyond just the closing aspect of it. You went beyond, because you started into, how to think of yourself as an entrepreneur and a business person. Is that kind of, and you alluded to that, is that kind of your approach to sales in general? Is that it's not just, you're going in to close the deal, sell the car type of thing, but it's more of a whole person concept, for lack of a better term?
Absolutely. I always say from the top, a business sells a product or service. The marketing's job is to sell a solution or an experience. But your job on a phone call and when you're talking to someone is only to sell yourself.
What about that? Can you expand just a little bit about that for those of us, or for those that maybe not familiar and they're not, they think they have a very traditional view of a salesman. Can you expand on that for them?
Yeah, absolutely. The buyer has gotten smart. Their transactional sales don't work anymore.
Right.
Most people had a bad experience being sold to, usually by a used car salesman.
Right. Yeah.
And they told themselves, I'm not going to go through that dance and ever again. I'm not doing that. And as soon as you try to sell them, their resistance comes up. But if you just get to know them, you find out what's going on with them and what they actually need, then it's a version of sell them what they want, but give them what they need. And I look at it like I'm a doctor prescribing them a solution. The way that I look at sales is these people have cancer. They have cancer of the wallet. They have cancer in their relationships. Their health is suffering. They're overweight. They're underpaid. They're suffering in somewhere. I'm going to find where they're suffering and then prescribe them the cure for it. And therefore, I have an ethical responsibility to guide them to that solution. Regardless of all the objections they're going to throw at me, I know that what I'm giving them is going to save their life.
Right. Yeah. I love it. And that's really all it is. It's not about anymore trying to convince them of the product. It's more just helping them help themselves, right? It's kind of a nutshell
Absolutely.
approach.
It's empowering other people is really what it comes down to.
Right.
Because the reality is people want those things. People want better health. They want better relationships. They want more money. And what's stopping them is usually their ego. And your job is to help them get past that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you say that because my wife Liz and I were just having a conversation about this probably 2 or 3 days ago about the distrust level of people. And certainly both her and I were raised in families where, money wasn't really talked about. And certainly more on her side, it was actually kind of an evil thing, right? The root of all evil kind of mentality.
Right.
And, and getting past that, just that alone to help people help themselves, right? Because you're exactly right. Everyone wants to be healthy and everyone wants to improve their lives. But, once you hear that word salesman, especially from people like my wife and I and that generation, and certainly more than just our generation, but that's pretty fascinating. I love that. Now you had mentioned,
yeah, the red flag goes up. People want to buy, but they don't want to be sold to.
Yeah, exactly. And you've made a business of not selling to people, right? Yeah, that's awesome.
That's right.
I
And
love
teaching people how to not sell to other people.
right. Yeah. Which is more difficult, would you say? Teaching people to do it or doing it yourself?
Definitely teaching people is more difficult because you're not only now battling with the client's egos, but you're battling with the person's egos as well. Because what most people don't realize is they're bringing their stuff to the call too.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I can work on my own, but if I got to work on yours, I got to coach you through it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like as a young salesman, if you've never bought something that's $80,000, right? Whether it be a solar package or a new car or whatever, if you've never done it yourself, it's actually pretty difficult to try to convince or help somebody else do that, right? If that's a lot of money to you, then that's going to be a lot of money as you present it. Yeah, that's not much fun there. So now you mentioned quite a few different industries. Were those all industries that you've been in and gone through, as far whether it be with your own under the Vision Acquisitions Group or past jobs or experiences?
Oh, wow. I've been bounced around several industries really since I was 10 years old. I started selling candy and baseball cards, so I call myself a young entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah,
And I've sold everything from mortgages and houses to businesses, both brick and mortar and digital. I've managed businesses in event production. I've been in the cannabis industry. I have been in auto parts industry. I've sold solar. I've sold lots of coaching programs. Pretty much jack of all trades, like you said earlier.
Right. Yeah. Just out of pure curiosity, have you had a favorite or one? Well, let's both ends. Ones that you're like, I don't really need to go back to there ever again, and one that you're like, man, that I really enjoyed that time there.
I hate teaching coaches. I have a very love-hate relationship with
Right.
coaches.
Yeah.
Right now, I love teaching coaches because I really have an ambitious desire to change the world, and I'm not dumb enough to think I can do it by myself. So I know that the coaches are those frontline workers, so to speak, that are going to make that difference, right? The people like you and all the other coaches out there. So I'm very heavily invested in helping those people. On the flip side, they are very difficult people to help.
What are you talking about? Yeah, that's me.
They don't know how to ask for help, and genuinely a lot of times are trying to do everything themselves, and they still think like an employee, not like an owner.
Right. Yeah. I can 100% attest to that. I am that person, and I am trying every day to fix that mentality. So how do you get through to those type of people that and get them out of the employee into the taking ownership and responsibility?
I start really honing in on what is it that you're great at. Right. This is where my coaching, whether it's in sales and business, whether I'm talking to coaches, really varies from a lot of the industry. I don't like to talk about what's not working in your life, what's broken, why your dad left you and now you have issues in your relationship, why this or that happened to you as a child. Although it's important, we can spend hundreds of years talking about it and get nowhere.
Yeah.
I like to talk about what is it that you're great at. Let's double down on that and let me help you hire everything that you're not great at. Hire your weaknesses. Don't try to learn all these things that you're not great at. I am dumb when it comes to tech, marketing. I mean, I know the language, but I could not do anything myself. So I partner and hire experts. And I don't do it. I double down on what I am good at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, that one piece of advice right there is worth its weight in gold, 100%. Yeah, to stop.
Whether
Stop
you're a
trying
business owner, a coach, yeah, anything.
Yeah. Stop trying to fill your holes yourself and just patch them with somebody else. Right? Is the kind of the dumbed down version of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And double down on what you're great at.
Right.
Because the reality is everybody's great at something. And the way our business economy moves is by supporting other people with what they're great at.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, so this is kind of a leadership podcast. So let's talk about your leadership journey, right? So you're no longer 10 years old. You've had so many experiences, so many varied experiences. Are there a couple highlights that you, whether experience from a leader that, that you've had as a leader or versus somebody that's been a leader of you? Is there anything you want to discuss on that end or some highlights that you've learned?
Absolutely. There is one big thing that was a harsh lesson for me. I had a lot of success chasing my ego and chasing money. And I was very successful at it. And success can be very blinding. As a coach, I started to tell myself that I can coach anyone into success. And I started pouring my time and energy and leadership into, let's say, getting D students to be A students.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, although they ended up being C students, I ended up being a B student because it's that proximity, and it brought me down. And what I focus now more on is let me help the B students become A students. The D students aren't even ready yet. And let me not chase my ego and prove to myself I can take a D student to an A student because it's exhausting.
Yeah. Is it exhausting because the D student is a lack of ability or a lack of motivation, a lack of what is it that keeps you from taking a D student to an A?
Ultimately, it's very hard to break people of their habits and their mental beliefs, right? Where they see themselves. It's a projection thing. At the end of the day, where you see yourself in life ultimately is where you end up. And as much as I might believe more in you than you believe in yourself.
Yeah. That I love that analogy because I think 100% that's the difference. That's what moves people out of the F and D, for using the grade system, is their mindset, is the ability to think that I am capable of more, right? And if I'm understanding you correctly, I'm hearing you say essentially D students just don't have that mindset, no matter how much you try to impart that onto them, of they are actually capable of more.
Absolutely. And although I want to inspire them, it is very draining to coach them.
Yeah, yeah. Have you found, I would imagine you have, and I'm actually kind of hoping you're going to contradict me on this, but have you found as people get older and you run into that, you're seeing less D students, or they're just worse D students? Like, is there an age that is going along with this, or is it just kind of even across the board, across the industries? You get a mix.
I find that if you're already, let's say, quote unquote, a D student, if you're already stuck in your mentality from a young age, the older you get, the more hardened that programming becomes, and it becomes harder to unravel it. So actually, if you're a D student and you're still young, it is the absolute best time to course correct, right? Start to surround yourself with millionaires, because if you're around 9 other millionaires, you'll be the 10th. But if you're around 9 other drug addicts, you'll be the 10th, no matter how hard you try to fight it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, and I just have to ask, so maybe we've got a D, a quote unquote D student that is listening right now, and they're, maybe they're down on their dumps. What can they do? Is there some resource that you can point them to, or, somebody to start listening to, or one thing to start changing that mindset aspect of it? Is there a piece of advice you have for them, or either you're just kind of like, sorry, bro, you're screwed?
Never. I believe everyone and everything is put on this planet for a reason. Everybody has a purpose. I think the first thing to do is to figure that out.
Nice.
I was down in the dumps not too long ago. After making hundreds of thousands of dollars, running a multi-million-dollar company, I started investing and lost it. And then was going through a divorce and got distracted, and my businesses started failing, and I ended up homeless.
Wow.
And I had to rebuild myself.
Yeah.
And what I had to find is, what is my purpose? Now that I focus solely on my purpose, I make way more money than I ever did.
Right.
I work way less and I'm way happier because I focus only on my purpose, and I discovered what my purpose is. And for me, it was really a harsh reality, because my purpose, ironically, doesn't work on me, Kale. Right? I am an expert at monetizing people's superpower. So I can make other people better. That's what I do. I am a magnifier. Right? I'm an idea, I'm a creator, I'm an industry disruptor, but do I do anything? I don't. Day to day, I really don't do very much. I lead leaders.
Okay. I like it. I'm a little bit confused. How does it not work on you? What do you mean? Expand on that just a little bit.
If I was to solely focus on myself and investing and doing businesses and things like that, it doesn't seem to give me the same internal reward, and therefore I don't put in the same effort.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
If I was here on this podcast for myself, I'd have been hungover, I'd have been half asleep, I'd have been late.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? But because I'm here for you, and because I'm here for your audience, I was early, prepared, and on time.
Yes.
Because there's something bigger than me.
That. Yeah. That's awesome. That is awesome. I love that mentality. And that's the key. That's the key of it. Yeah. Go ahead.
If you're a D student, you got to focus on what's your purpose. Number one. Number two, you got to figure out how to put yourself in the room with other A players, because they'll rub off on you.
Yeah. Without being such a D student that you get kicked out of the room, right? Because it kind of, the door swings a little bit both ways when that comes down to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's where you just got to listen and get a paper and pen and take notes.
Yeah. Park your ego out in your car while you're inside. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I love that. That is a pretty phenomenal insight. Now talk to me a little bit more about your current with the Vision Acquisitions Group. This is something that you started, and now is this you're focusing, like, is it purely on buying and selling businesses, or is this coming in and fixing businesses? What's a little bit more about that group and that project?
Yeah, so all of the above, I find as a business coach, I have so much value to provide to business owners. It
Right.
originally intended as just being like a broker, right? Buying and selling.
Sure.
As I talk to business owners more and more, I find how much, need is for support in the industry. And so we support them with financing. We'll support them doing roll-ups, exits, going public, selling to private equity, raising capital for a startup, things like that that the industry really needs. And that's what we started focusing on more at the Vision Acquisitions Group, and left the brokering to the brokers.
Okay. Cool. And I would imagine that's a little bit more fulfilling because that's kind of more whole concept versus just transactional, buying and selling type thing.
Exactly. I want to sit there and make sure that these business owners are successful. And from the other side, I want to make sure the private equity's money is protected.
It's cool. Um, that's pretty legit, man. This has been so fascinating just to kind of get a peek into how your brain works because it works a little differently than most people's. Just from the perspective of you have a very service oriented, and you understand and recognize the value of that, which is quite refreshing. So that's awesome. Congratulations on that. I just wanted to say that before that moment
Absolutely.
passes.
The one thing I will say where it diverts is I do agree, focus on that one thing, right? Find what it is that you're great at doing. Because I did fail before in business, wearing too many hats in my business. And I had to learn what's the one thing that I can do, and then hire everyone else, like I was saying earlier. But the second part of that is really understanding that you don't have to limit yourself to one business. Right now that I know that I monetize people's superpowers, ultimately I'm a business coach. That has led me to Vision Acquisitions Group. I'm the head trainer at Closure Queens, Coach Foundation, Close More. I have percentages in Market Makers Method. I have percentages in Rise to Succeed, which is a coaching program. I have e-commerce stores that I manage. I have some other businesses that I'm supporting on an oil and gas roll up, hotel roll up, developing crypto mines. It has become several different things, and it sounds crazy, but at the end of the day, I only do one thing. I'm always playing the same role, right? I'm the chief of business development, regardless of what the industry is, regardless of how I'm doing it, whether it's someone just beginning a small $1,000 a month business or it's someone purchasing a $10 million a month business.
Right, right. And that is such a critical key. And I hope the audience, when you're listening to this, because it would be easy to hear that and go like, oh my gosh, he's so spread out, like he's trying to do everything. But you're not, let me just paraphrase, you're not out there digging oil wells. You're not out there picking out servers for your crypto mining thing. You're not out there, buying the sheets for the hotels and how to decorate the hotel and the location, right? You're focusing on the same aspect of each of those different businesses. And that's what makes it all connected and work for you. Is that accurate?
That's right. I wear one hat to many parties instead of wearing many hats in my business and failing.
I like that. One hat to that. I might have to steal that, Ace. One hat to many parties. That is, I had I had not heard that analogy before, and I love it. One hat to many parties, because that's exactly what it is. It's the same hat. Thanks, man. That was
Yeah,
worth it all just for me right there. My light bulb is now just my brain has started spinning a little bit and going off into.
absolutely. You find your purpose. That's your one hat. Then you figure out how can I monetize it, and that's
Right.
the many parties.
Yeah. All right. So I ask all my guests because I think it's such an interesting thing to think about. This is definitely a little more on the philosophical, but can be practical of and how you run into this, the difference between a leader and a manager, right? So these are potentially two different people, potentially one person. Do you have an opinion on that one way or another? Is there a difference to you?
Absolutely. I've trained and hired many managers and been a manager of several different businesses. A
Right.
manager is really just a glorified firefighter and a babysitter at the end of the day, right? The
Fighter and
firefighting
babysitter.
is the necessary part that I think everyone accepts. The babysitting part is where some managers fail and they're not really good babysitters, but they have to be,
True.
right? a leader doesn't have to be a babysitter. A leader leads by example, and more importantly, a leader empowers other people to be leaders. And when you have other leaders around you, you don't need to babysit anybody.
Yeah, true. I love it. Yeah. The focus on, and it's really kind of, yeah, the focus on the external and the next generation, the leadership. I like it.
Absolutely. And how you empower leaders is by helping them discover their superpower and then just focusing on that, because everyone's great at something. Even your own children. You want to empower your children, have them teach you something that you don't know.
Right. I love that. That is very powerful. And I would argue most parents that never crosses their mind to look at their young son or daughter and say, teach me about that, right? And that way to...
How many business owners, how many times have you been an employee and the owner comes to you and says, teach me something I don't know, Kale?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My wife never says that to me. I'm going to tell her that. Well, actually, I'll use it on her first. Like, hey, teach me something, Liz.
It empowers them. It empowers people. Everyone's great at something and everyone has something to teach you.
Yeah. I love that. Teach me something. I think that's a great, because it actually goes along with a podcast that I just released earlier this past week was walk me through it, was the phrase of, and it doesn't have to be I'm stupid, I don't understand. It's just a simple open me up into your world, walk me through your thought process on that decision, walk me through why you're doing it that way, those types of things. And it's a way to connect and empower people. I like it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. All right. Anything else you wanted to mention to the audience, things you've got coming up, maybe a project you've got on the horizon? How do people get into your world, get into contact with you? If they're like, man, that ace is speaking my language, I really need to get in contact with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say probably the easiest way is on my Instagram or any of my socials. You can look me up as My Coach Ace, one word.
Okay.
My Coach Ace, easiest way to find me and get into my world. If you're a woman in sales, closer queens is what I'm focused on now. I have really less and less been training men, to be honest with you, Kale, and been focused on training the women in this world.
Nice.
And what I would like to end with is the reason I did that. I feel that a lot of egocentric people out there take my knowledge and weaponize it and use it for bad. And not everybody has their heart in the right place like you do.
I would agree with that.
And I say that because it's usually an ego world of let me compete and let me show you my nice car and let me do all that, and that is not the intention of what I wanted to start. My purpose was to empower and make a difference. And I noticed a big need, which is women entered the work field in the 40s, 50s during World War II. So they were new to it. And they entered into this work field and started competing with men and taking on masculine traits.
Right.
And I believe that's a lose-lose. I don't believe that men were doing it right the first time, and I don't believe women copying us is going to be any more successful.
No.
I believe women's responsibility is to bring empathetic resonance to entrepreneurship and to business, and that it really is the women who are going to wake the men up and support us in actually becoming conscious entrepreneurs. And so that's why I'm focused on right now, training the women to be able to do that.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. That is a very big goal. And it is very, I don't know, what's the right word? Counterintuitive almost as far as that path in that direction. But I love it. Yeah. To stop.
Yeah, isn't it ironic? There's a man leading a women's movement.
Yeah, not so much that. That's not what I was referring to, but you're the one, you've got the skills and the practical skills and the mindset in order to empower them to get out of that, what you just described, very traditionally egocentric kind of a career field, right? That, Wolf of Wall Street type mentality, which I think is what you're
absolutely
kind of referring to. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So I will definitely put links to your socials with Instagram and Facebook and Closer Queens, so people can easily find you on the description here. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. It was an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. Any last little tidbits? You've been dropping bombs like crazy. And anything else that's come across your mind?
I would honestly say I do not mean to discourage the people who are D students.
Yeah.
I would say that it takes a lot of leveling up. Do not focus on being an A student out the gate. Get to a C, get to a B, then get to an A. And there's different people that'll help you at different levels. Right? The same person that can get you from a D to a C is not the same person that'll get you from a C to a B. And when you're at that B and ready to get to an A, that's when I will help you.
Yeah, I love it. That is a good reminder, right? Yeah, that it's never too late. There's always hope, as long as you're willing to take the steps necessary. Yeah, cool.
100%.
All right. Well, thank you again, Mr. Ace. I very much appreciate you spending your afternoon or morning where you're at. No, afternoon, right? Yeah, where you're at. And being willing to lend your wisdom to us. So again, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Kale.
You bet. And everybody out there, hey, I appreciate you spending your time with us on the Kale Houser Leadership Podcast. Have a great afternoon, no matter where you're at in the world. Bye.